And for the video that you just heard. I represent here today a company called Rimac Automobili. And why have you seen this video is because we have been invited also by the Ministry of Regional Development and EU funds to share our experience with the EU funding of the company. So I will present you today some of the lessons that we have learned so far with preparing and using the EU funds, and also mention some of the messages that we have for the policymakers and also for the entrepreneurs, so the potential beneficiaries. But before, let me share you some information about the company. I guess you probably all have heard of company Rimac Automobili. And today I will just share briefly information on the company, but I will focus on the EU funding aspect and give a comparison on what was mostly important for the growth of our company, whether it were investments or the EU funding. So who we are? The company was founded in 2009 by entrepreneur Mate Rimac. And now, since 2009, we have grown up to 700 employees. Just a couple of days ago, I was also, as an internal employer, positively surprised, knowing that the number is not 700 anymore, but it is almost 900. Because over the course of the lockdown, even the company was hiring people. So we are close to 900 people at this moment. And out of this, almost 900 people, more than 50% are engineers. These are people working in research, development, design of our hypercar and also technology. So far, the company has completed over 40 projects, so medium-sized and small projects for the original equipment manufacturer all over Europe and the globe. The company was always was enlisted in some of the rankings around the world of the fastest growing technology company. The creation portal Moj Posao has awarded the company an award as the best employer in Croatia. So these are some of the highlights of the company. So we are growing, and we don't stop. We don't intend to stop growing. But what is it that we do? We have two strategic pillars. One is the design and production of the hypercars, and the second, becoming more and more important, is the technology. So, and this is a part that maybe the public doesn't know much, but it's not just about the car, it's not just about the concept 1 and concept 2, so the C2, that you know it's the fastest accelerating electric car in the world, but it is the whole array of technology that we produce, so the components that we produce for the major OEMs globally. And one technology of those that is most prominent is the battery technology. And throughout the history and this decade of working and successfully deploying the technology, the company has, and that's a fact, struggled in its beginning to find investors, to find finances. And if you look at it from 2009 to today, some of the investments that happened after 2013, 14 were actually the triggers that incentivize the real growth of the company. So the seed investments came from private people, from business angels, and if you look at it in that beginning, there was an investment, seed investment that amounted around 7 million euros. Then later in 2017, there was this so-called A round of investment that brought the company a much higher amount of 27 million euros. And then a year later, it was an investment from Porsche. It was almost 17 million euros. And recently, in 2019, there was an investment from consortium from Kia and Hyundai amounting almost 80 million euros. So, and this is something that really triggered growth and the large volume projects. And if you look at it from in the bottom on the slide, there are some EU funds and other investments, so from public sources, EU funds, national funds, that had also played an important role, but it's, we can say that it was an operational help. It wasn't something that really triggered the company's growth and which caused the leapfrogging into bigger investments. So in 2012, the first EU or national funds that we received was actually quite a struggle, because at that point the company was very young, and it wasn't easy to convince the public authorities that what we have is really something innovative, that it's worthwhile, that it has a potential to really grow. And well, the policymakers would say that there was a big information asymmetry, and this is something that if you are a startup and if you're an innovative startup, this is something that you probably have faced already. And this is, you have all this knowledge, you have these all good ideas, but on the other side, there are mostly people who think in different patterns. They think about bureaucratic rules, they think about administrative needs that they have to fulfill, they think about collaterals, they think about everything that you have in written that can minimize their risk and to reach the decision to fund you. So at that time, it was very, very difficult to convince not just the ministries, but also banks that we really have something worth investing. And the first investment from the Croatian Bank of Development and Reconstruction actually came only after the first car was sold, and only after we already had some projects ongoing. So, and this is one of the messages, of course, that we want to convey to the policymakers. And then one year that was really important in state aid-wise was 2015, when we contracted a support given under the law for investments, which helped us in providing subsidies for newly employed people. There was also one support, so a grant given for the innovative startups. But if you look at the amounts of those grants, they were very, very low and very small for what actually was needed for the company to grow. That's why I'm saying it's just an operative help for, and it was very helpful, but it couldn't give leverage to growth. Then in 2017, there was a little bit of a change that happened for us in the EU funds perspective, and that we were awarded, maybe you have heard, innovation research and so the IRI award. It was the single most, the single biggest amount awarded to a Croatian company. It was 52 million kunas. And we are still implementing that grant. And in 2000, so in this year, we have prepared many new projects, and we are now innovating of approval. So for IRI too, but also other European grants. So to sum up, the lessons that we learned so far is that we can say that in the startup phase, we really needed to keep track of how we do our accounting, because if you're an innovative company that invests a lot in research and development, you really have to take care that that the track record of your spending is kept under the international standards for R&D, because if you do it like that, then you have intangible assets to show. And this goes a long way with the funding authorities to say that you're not just spending, but you're creating future value of the company. If you don't have anything else to show, then you have these intangible assets, so meaning either patent applications or so on. So keep that on your mind. As I said, there is a high information asymmetry, so if you're looking for EU funding in the startup phase, well, maybe you should look somewhere else, because it's just, it doesn't match, you know, the administrative rules and the ideas that you might have. And the only time when you might receive, according to our experience, some money from the EU funding or national funds is only once you already have some proofs to show, so either profit or bigger projects already done. Then in the scale-up phase, I would recommend that you diversify the potential EU funding available, and that you match it with any of the projects that you might have in the company. So it doesn't have to necessarily be only an R&D project, but maybe you have a development project in the sales department. Maybe there is an innovation process in the production department. Maybe there is a project in digitalization sphere. So be creative, and whatever there is out, you probably have an idea that could fit. You just have to pack it so that it fits the actual call. And on the other side, you know, and if you look at the calls, I've come across throughout my work that people tend to focus only on what's available in the structural funds, but it's not enough. You should try and look at the different mechanism, not just grants, but maybe blended finances, maybe revenue sharing. Look at the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, because they're very much more prone to providing help to startups and not just to already existing companies. For ERDF in Croatia, you have to plan your projects, and if you can omit public procurement, do so, because it's very, very it's very complicated. But if you have public procurement, my advice would be to keep good relations with funding authorities and always have good technical explanation prepared, because you know your project best, and whatever the explanation is, if you can argument it well, they need to accept it. And for the EU level, if you really want to communicate and get funding from the non-so-visible funding bodies, approach them proactively. They really know how to handle it. They're not like some very strict and rigid funding bodies who don't allow companies or entrepreneurs to approach them. Just approach them and ask what you need. So the messages for policymakers are that state aid and EU funds are nice to have, but if you really want them to make a difference, then you have to have some more gut feeling, and you have to have some braveness in you to really make strategic decisions and to have more funding available for strategic projects, and not to disperse money so that you can say that you have dispersed money. So you need to we need to have a proper policy mix for the whole value chain, you know, from the seed to startup to scale-up phase to mid-cap. And only with that can we really make a difference. And one other thing they also want to say to the policymakers is there are so many different ways of supporting companies. So it's not just about the granting. There could also be possibilities in the IPSE. I don't know if you know about IPSE, but these are the important projects of common European interests, which can tackle some of the challenges of today, and support project in AI, in hydrogen technology, and autonomous driving, in cybersecurity, in health, and so on. So these projects are common European projects, and the state can leapfrog the state aid rules and provide much larger support to companies that fulfill those European goals. So I would suggest to also advocate for IPSE as a form and a mechanism of supporting companies in Croatia, because this is how policy is actually made. We have to, so it comes bottom up, we have to push the boundaries, we have to convince the ministries, because if there is a critical mass, then they will need to accept it and provide also that mechanism to all companies that might be interested, because this is the only way how we can make that EU funds make a bigger difference, not just to serve as an operative help. And also, if we are a bit self-critical also, then we have to say that we have to build our internal capacities as well, and really have people who understand that the preparation is a lengthy process, that implementation of granted EU funding is even more lengthy process that needs different departments in the company to be coordinated and to understand why we do it like we do it. So because it also tackles how finances keep track of the project costs, also the HR department, even the marketing department, legal department, purchasing, and so on. So what we need to also work on our side is to set up internal processes so that we can really deal with so big amounts and EU funding. And also what we need to embrace is to have more patience with the funding bodies because there is a lot of waiting. You have to wait for the tender to be out. You have to wait then for the evaluation results. You then have to wait for the contracting and so on and so on. So I think that's a big of a challenge for us to be patient. And innovation and patience doesn't really go well together. I hope this presentation was useful to you, and if you have any more information from my side that might help you, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.